Okay, welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. Ms. Lowe is running a few minutes late. First off, is there a motion to accept or modify the agenda this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to modify the agenda to add special services restructuring plan and work session.
To the work session is what
To
you
the,
meant.
to the work session, sorry about that.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Next up, we're going to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Thank you. All right, going on to the action agenda this evening. We only have 3 items on our action agenda. I'll call up if there are any speakers for each of these items. I'm gonna skip reading this long note this evening. We'll just know, we'll keep it to 3 minutes if we have something to say. First up, we have introduction and appointment of the Director of Human Resources, Dr. Ballinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lee, would you join me, please? It is my honor to recommend to the board and introduce Mr. Jody Lee as my recommendation as the Human Resources Director starting June 1st, 2023. Mr. Lee was born and raised in Front Royal, Virginia. He graduated from Warren County High School in 1992. He earned his bachelor's in health and physical education from Frostburg State University in 1997. Was hired by Warren County Public Schools as a teacher and coach in 1998. Then he made his way into administration as the Dean of Students at Warren County Junior High in 2004. Earned his master's in educational leadership from George Mason in 2006. Became the assistant principal at Skyline High School when it opened in 2007 and continues to serve in that capacity. Mr. Lee resides in Warren County. He's married to his high school sweetheart, Miss Lee, and he also has 2 amazing children, Abby and Tyler. Abby actually just graduated from JMU last week, I believe. Yes, sir. Yes. And Tyler is slated to graduate from Skyline High School next year. So it is my recommendation and honor to recommend to the board Mr. Jody Lee as the Director for Human Resources.
For completeness sake, is there anyone who wanted to make public comment on this action item? Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept Jody Lee as the HR Director, effective June 1, 2023.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no? Thank you. Welcome, Mr.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to Dr. Ballinger. Thank you, board, for accepting his recommendation. As you heard Dr. Ballinger read, I'm a lifelong resident of Front Royal. I'm as invested as can be. My family is as invested as can be. I appreciate them being here tonight and all the support from the community. The selection committee, I want to thank those folks, and I look forward to working with a great team. And you know, just looking back, I know I had so many influences in my life, and a lot of those influences were teachers and coaches of Warren County Public Schools. I'm a product of it. I've seen my children come through the school system and have those positive interactions, have those positive influences in their lives. Of course, my wife as well. So I know how important it is to bring good people to our school system and also retain them in our school system. So that's going to be my focus. So thank you again, and looking forward to to the challenge that lies ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Good luck.
Next up, would anyone here this evening like to speak on the approval of solid waste removal contract? Then Mr. Helmut.
How do you follow up Jody Lee? Okay, so tonight I'm here to speak on the approval for the solid waste removal contract. The current agreement for solid waste pickup and dumpster services with Republic Services is scheduled to expire on June 30th, 2023. Warren County Public Schools Facilities Department put the contract out for bid, IFB number 2023-001. Sealed bids were due back April 19th by 1 p.m. Republic Services was the only bidder with the price of $95,472. The 2022 cost for solid waste pickup was $92,475.22.
Are there any questions for Mr. Helmut?
I guess with fuel and everything, they had to go up, huh?
Yes, sir. And we have also added a lot of pickups. When our contract first started with them, we had 1 day a week scheduled for pickup. We went to 2 and 3 days a week for most schools, and our summer schedule went from 1 day a week to 2 days a week because of all of the new lunches and COVID expenditures for foods.
And this stays as a fixed cost contract?
This will be fixed cost.
Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll make that motion. I move that the annual service agreement for solid waste removal and dumpster service be awarded to Republic Services for 1 year, 2023, with 4 one-year renewals in the amount of $95,472.00.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Next up, we have transportation radios. Would anyone from the public like to speak on transportation radios? Mr. Mitchell.
Good evening. I'm here today to present, I think it was about a month ago during the session, we presented just kind of an overview of the T-Mobile system and what we were looking at. This is really just a reiteration of that. We have procured some funds that would allow us to fund this. So at this point, our radio system is 20 years old. So we're requesting that a push-to-talk equipment be purchased. We would own this. This is not a lease. And this would allow us to have radio transmission via cellular and Wi-Fi services. Our testing of the different products showed the T-Mobile service served our needs the best. And additionally, T-Mobile is an eVirginia vendor.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Warren County School Board approves the purchase quoted equipment for installation in school buses and all school transport vehicles from T-Mobile as presented in the amount of $32,410.13.
Is there a second? A second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no? Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Okay. Moving on to our work session items for this evening. First up, Mr. Mitchell again with school bus driver bonuses.
Okay, the Virginia Department of Education gave us an opportunity to apply for a grant that we could use for driver retention, driver incentive, anything of that nature. We were hoping for more funding than what we've got. It's about $13,600 and a few pennies. What I presented you guys this evening is just like 4 basic scenarios that I'm recommending that you guys select one. And not asking you to do that tonight, if you can kind of review it, if you have questions about it. But everything you'll see here is attendance-based. And these numbers have already changed in the 2 weeks since I did this. They've already changed again. But the good news is nothing will increase because nobody's going to miss less days. So, any questions about the scenarios themselves?
It looks like there are about 42 bus drivers total. Is that what I
Correct.
just quickly ended? Okay.
And that number can change too. So,
Sure, sure.
Moving target.
And it's a one-time grant?
Yes, but our hopes are that, because we don't necessarily always fill all of our subcontracts, so I'm hoping that maybe I can lean on Dr. Ballinger a little bit next year, that if we don't necessarily fill a contract, that would be about a $13,000, $14,000 value, we may be able to incentivize this and continue this on if we find we don't need that additional contract.
What kind of timeline are you looking at for this to come back for approval or?
So the board will have to have an approval on it, because it's salary, so it would be an increase. So you would have to make a motion as far as a bonus using the grant money, probably at the June meeting.
That's my question, right?
So it'll be this fiscal year.
It would be this fiscal year. The funds have to be expended by June 30th.
Okay, I guess. Okay,
So we would need to, now we won't, here's one of the dilemmas. We do this in June, we make the payroll, we won't get the reimbursement until next fiscal year,
Next one?
next fiscal year.
Okay.
So it'll,
But that's okay.
yes, I mean, it just rolls over into next fiscal year, so. What that does is it reduces what we may have as a carryover this year, because you can't backfill it with the grant, but then it increases what you have next year.
And are the absences, is that like all year you've gone through, or is it just?
That's from the beginning of the school year
Until-
about 2 weeks ago, and then I just ran it today. And within this, I have 2 employees that haven't been here since the first day of school, so we would have to kind of put them on a scale proportionally to where they fall in. So it's fair to everybody.
But then you would essentially wait till the last day of school and rerun it. to
Yes.
have it on the first day.
Yes.
So really, if you guys can kind of tell us what your threshold, as far as what you feel would be the ideal dates as far as absences that you feel is okay for us to do this. Now, and of course, if you want to make this an attendance initiative, you can do that, or if you just want to say equal between all drivers. But it's really supposed to be for retention, and, you know, we're trying to focus on that. One of the things also that we're making some adjustments is the number of absences bus drivers will get next year. So, they will actually get an increase in absences. Sick days available to bus drivers.
So how many, like currently, do they get the same as, like, how does that work? Do they get personal and sick? And just 4 sick, they don't get personal or anything, just 4 sick days a year?
So if they miss more of those unpaid?
Pardon me?
So for the folks that have missed more than 4 days, were those unpaid days?
So that's, we have just by this number, at this particular time, you've got 11 drivers that missed over 10. I mean, I have some that missed over 25, 30. So that you can see where there's, from my perspective, I want to incentivize come to work.
Okay, so everybody in that 5 to
10 plus, when they hit those days over 4, they were working 10. Didn't get that.
So if you guys just kind of tell us the threshold that you would want, then we will tailor that to prepare everything for kind of the June meeting to make a final decision.
I mean, I feel like it's a shame that we're doing this at the end because I feel like it would have been more effective if we could have let them know about this. Maybe it would have incentivized them not
Yeah,
to
and
miss,
I'm
but
not
obviously with the timing, we don't have that option anymore.
And I'm not sure when the grant came in, so,
Well, part of it initially, we were looking at, we were thinking we could even use it in incentivize for like, with jackets, tires, stuff like that. DOE came back and ruled that that was not a qualifying thing. That they wanted this format, not necessarily, they weren't tying our hands to making it attendance driven, but they wanted it in some way. I just had a lot of heartburn saying, okay, if I've got, say, 11, 12 people that have missed 20-plus days, and then I've got 7 people who've missed none, I don't feel that that should be across the board the same. That's just my personal feeling.
Is your most experienced people, where does the breakdown occur with the absences? Or is there, like, are the new people missing more time than the older people?
For the most part.
We spent a lot of time talking about absences for students, for teachers, so it makes sense that you've chosen this as what you would use.
It was kind of the opposite of when we were in COVID. We told people if you weren't feeling good, don't come in, and now we're one of them.
Now, give it a spray day.
Yeah, okay.
When you have this many absences, do you typically, other people from transportation jump in, or
We
you have
have
a big
to.
sub list that you?
We work off, we have about 6 subcontracts that they would always have something to step up and assign if they didn't have a role or a route to cover. I've been here 12, going 13 years. I've never filled every position. I've always tried to manage the operation just based on need. And so that holds anywhere from 3 to 6. We're currently at 3 subs. And then I also have some 2 8-hour positions that are available to sub if need be, if they're not doing observations or training or ride along. So we have to get creative.
Then there's times that they also have to reroute. Somebody may pick up another portion of a route or split portions of routes, so to help cover.
Do you have a particular direction here that you would be leaning, or you kind of see it as equivalent and you?
I think you all have to speak for your constituents.
Fair.
You know, for me, I want to, and I appreciate your point where you said it would be great if they knew from the beginning, but the way I see this currently is I'm going to reward people for doing the right thing when no one was looking. And that's what this would do, I think, particularly with the scenario 1, even the scenario 3, I think you're really trying to reward the people that, again, they did the right thing for no other reason than to do the right thing. And again, moving forward, if we know that there's an opportunity that this might be there again at the end of next school year, hopefully maybe it'll incentivize people that, hey, maybe I can get in today, you know, for that hour and a half.
Yeah, I would say the same thing what Ms. Lowe said. It would have been great to know, but obviously we don't know, but it's great that these funds could be available now. I personally, you know, and I know things happen, people, you know, you can't help that with situations, but I kind of like the ones that are rewarding those ones that have missed like that 4 or less. You know, 10 plus days, 10 days, you've missed 10 days, that's a lot of days. And I understand there's a variety of reasons why they might have missed it, but,
I look at you operationally from a director's point of view, that's a 180-day contract, let's say, of 4 hours, 4.5 hours a day. So if we put that in business math, that's really 90 days. And so if I'm missing 20 plus days out of a 90-day contract, it's a lot.
to me, you know, and I understand there could be many reasons
There
they
are
missed
many.
it, but, you know, we all have to make choices. So I personally would like to see the ones who are in that less than 1 up to 4 being rewarded obviously the most, and it, you know, something they can look forward to next year and hopefully try to plan for.
I like the 1 to 4 as well, and could maybe go to include the 5 to 7, but I think, you know, the 1 to 4 used, or the 0 to 4 used the amount of days that are allotted. This is a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as though we're punishing the people who took more, and they may have needed to, but we have limited funds to give a bonus, so I agree with that.
So what's the average daily hours that these folks work? I know they work in the morning and they come back in later.
Their contracts are 4.5 hours.
Okay, and so a 1-day absence is 1 day?
Correct.
4 hours or so?
Correct.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing you're saying probably scenario one, or, well, you're saying anything with 4 or less, however that breakdown is.
That's scenario one.
Right. Scenario 3 extends it out to 5 to 7.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to say, stay with 4 or less, then we're kind of, that's the way we'll package it to deliver for a final vote. And of course, you guys can always make a modification if you want, but we'll prepare it for, it looks like scenario 1 then.
And we would have final numbers by that date too, for the end of the year with all of our staff.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Mitchell on this evening? Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Next up, we have a presentation of draft Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 grant applications. Ms. Bragg.
Good evening. So before your review is the Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 federal grant applications. These title grants provide funding for things like instructional programming, professional development, support for English language learners, and increasing division capacity for well-rounded instruction. We have every year to provide the applications to the state by July 1st. However, we do not have this coming year's funding levels. So all of the many pages in the PDFs on the funding are based off of essentially this year's numbers and will be adjusted for when we do get the state's final numbers coming to us for these federal funds. And so that information would be provided at that time, and all of the applications would be adjusted as necessary to account for those federal or the correct monetary source. So are there any questions about the 4 title grants? There is a summary sheet for your review that just kind of goes over essentially the total amount allotted for each one of the title grants. Something to draw your attention to, there is an option to roll Title 4 title funding into Title 2 so that we can increase our professional development support for teachers and principals. We opted to do that this year, and we are opting to do that again next year, is roll Title 4 funding into Title 2.
Are there any major changes that you've made between what we were using the funds for this year and what you're thinking about for next year?
No, nothing major. Some change in instructional positions at Title I, which I believe Dr. Ballinger has shared with you, that so that we could retain some of our student support coaches.
Our cares, when we received some extra funds last year, we transferred some of them over to
Title I.
basically save the cares so that we could extend this one more year.
So that support has allowed us to extend some of that support coach role out one more year, since there wasn't enough CARES money to complete out all the, the 17. So 6 of those.
Any additional questions for Ms. Bragg?
Okay. So final presentation will be at the next board meeting, but like I say, as changes come to adjusting funding.
Appreciate it, thank you. Next up is your second reading on the revised policy JED, student absences, excuses, and dismissals.
So this is the second reading for the draft student absences, excuses, and dismissals policy. We discussed it some at the last board meeting, and a few corrections and additions have been made. The addition on the draft policy, it starts at section 3 under definitions of excused absences. This draft has gone to the lawyer's office for review, and so based off of some of their recommendations and suggestions, we did add under the Part A excused absences, we added 2 additional reasons: the 4-H educational program or activity and the tribal nation activity. at the lawyer's request, that those be added to excused reasons, so it's in red in the draft policy. There were a couple of minor just section adjustments as far as changing some things from A's and B's to 3's and 4's at the request of the lawyer. Two things that are not in the draft policy but that the lawyer's office brought forth that I want to make you aware of. It's going to be on page, sorry. It is under section 4, the intervention process for unexcused absences. These comments I bring to your attention but are not currently included in the draft. Under section A, number 2, it says upon the 7th unexcused absence, the lawyer questioned if this should be the 6th absence. This was pulled straight from Virginia Code, and it states that when the student accrues the 7th unexcused absence, the principal or designee shall have the face-to-face attendance conference, and it goes on. It reads just as it does in our policy. So we have not made that change to a 6th, but I wanted to make you aware of it. But it's pulled straight from the code, the way that it's written in our policy. And then the second thing is number 3, under that same section, the request to suspend the student's driver's license. The lawyer's office just pointed out that this isn't necessarily a school board action. It's something that through the court process, the truancy officer can request. We left it in so that parents are aware that that is an option. The suggestion from the lawyer is that it's not necessarily, doesn't need to be there because it's not a school board action. So, like I say, we left it in so that parents are aware that that could be an option for truancy. But I'll leave that up to you all if you want to keep number 3 in the draft policy or not. And that was all from the lawyer's office. So those are the only changes. The red line that's in there, the 2 additional, and then for you to consider about the suspension of the driver's license.
And I would recommend that we just leave it as it is, because we have our truancy officer, and that way, when they're having those conversations with parents, a lot of times they give them the policy, so that it's made available to families.
And it's written so that it doesn't say we're making any decisions about that. It says the court throughout it. So.
I will say one of the things that the attendance committee, as they were drafting the new policy was, and it has to do with some of the way it's organized now, was to try to help make the policy more readable and understandable to parents. That, you know, the way the old policy was written, you know, it had a lot of legalese in it. It kind of ran on and on and on in paragraphs. And so, you know, some of the formatting and you know, some of the things where we've left in there, like the discussion about, you know, just the importance of absenteeism and excused and unexcused absences, you know, it is kind of to help inform the parents alongside of it being the policy. And that's kind of how I saw the suspended driver's license piece as well. It's just information that's there in case it comes up.
And it sounds like you're saying the lawyers weren't necessarily concerned that it was in there, it just didn't think it had to be.
Yeah, their exact comment was, I don't know why this is here, it isn't school board action.
It's
I
information
think it makes
from
sense to
parents,
keep it in
though.
there, yeah, because they're not gonna go read the code.
Right, right. It will be fine.
We'll be lucky if,
That's
I
That's
mean,
tons
people
of
read
fun
this.
though, reading the code. And then like I say, the 6th or the 7th unexcused absence piece, I mean, that was pulled straight from the code. So one more reading at the next board meeting and then the board motion.
Any additional questions for Ms. Bragg on this? Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have our additional work session item, the restructuring of special services.
Excuse me.
My mind blew, drew a blank, oh my gosh. The item that we added.
Oh,
It's you.
yes. The restructuring of.
I know, I
special
gave Ralph my
services.
paper is what happened.
So. if you don't mind, just- Might have a couple copies.
Thank you.
And this is just to make note of, one of the things that we wanted to do with special services was look at restructuring, what we could do to make it more manageable. And so when looking at the restructure of special services, it's to reduce the complexity of the department, reduce inefficiencies, response to new demands, develop more effective programs, increase accountability, and to increase student services provided by the school division. So looking at still keeping the tab special services, but that would be more geared towards special education. Under that umbrella, you will have your special education, your speech, your psychologist, your occupational physical therapist, your nurse, your pre-K program, the jail program, the medical homebound, and the learning centers tier 2. Now with that, and this is already in the budget, we had the deputy director, that's an admin 2. The special education supervisor was an admin 2, and reclassify that as a pre-K services coordinator, which is an admin 1, which we've had those discussions, and that is already in our budget. Tier 3 coordinator was admin 1, reclassify that as assistive technology Medicaid coordinator, which continues to stay at admin 1. So those are already in the budget. And then the one that's not is, one of the goals is to also make, at some point, we need to kind of have somebody just, that is a registered nurse, oversee the nursing program. So we do have a lead nurse. There is no stipend for that, so we wanted to put a stipend with the lead nurse. That would be an addition to what we have with our budget right now. And then breaking down and pulling out pupil services. Pupil services will be most of our alternative ed settings. And so you look at the alternative education, which that's this building, Diversified Minds, Brighter Futures, all 504s. After school programs, the 3 to 5 that's ran here, and the 4 to 6 programs that are ran at our high schools and middle schools. Also the ISAAP, the admin homebound. So when somebody has a discipline, they get put on admin homebound or something of that nature. That falls under the pupil services. Apex for credit recovery, and then learning centers tier 3. So salaries and positions. The principal right now of the program is on a admin 2. And remember, we talked about that by doing this, they would move to kind of like what we have in Blue Ridge Tech, which is on the admin 3 scale, which is a director/principal. Same as what Jane does over there. So that would reclassify that to an admin 3. One of the things that we were able to do, we're going to move a classroom out of Brighter Futures to another building. We have a staff member there that can actually take that classroom, so we're going to move it there. That opens up a teaching position. And by reclassifying this to an admin, and you see all this stuff that we're adding to pupil services, we need other support. So reclassify that teacher as a dean, which is still on the teacher scale. It's just the only addition is the dean stipend and the extra month that they have to work. It's an 11-month contract. And so looking at that, that would give another administrator here to help manage all of the inflow of this stuff that's going to be coming in under pupil services.
So is the director/principal, would they be in charge of everything under pupil services?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the director of special services would be in charge of everything there,
Yes, ma'am.
along with the deputy director?
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
So can you list out for me what are gonna be the different divisions within this unit when we're done with everything? There's pre-K, there's pupil services.
So that would be on the sheet here. So it's under special services, that would be the special education department up there.
Uh-huh,
That is what would stay under special education.
special,
And
so that's gonna be called special education?
we're going to keep it as special services
Special
because we
services,
still
okay.
have the nursing in there.
Okay,
We also, but really it's more of a special ed. And then you have your pupil services, which is more of the alternative ed.
So this middle one is not its own
No,
section?
that is,
That's
that
just
is,
people titles.
that is, yes, how we're reclassifying what we've done for special services, and then down here goes with pupil
So there's gonna be
services.
two sides,
So, yeah,
special
so you have
services
this
and pupil
one
services.
and that one, those two go together, yes, ma'am.
I'm with you.
And adding the stipend for the lead nurse, that's something we would need to vote on, or? is
Yes,
that-
when we do the adoption of the final budget.
Okay.
Mhm. But this gives us the opportunity to separate those two programs. It's really cumbersome right now, and there's a lot of this. And we need to really separate so that we can better serve our students and create better programs.
Any other questions on this? Anything else on the work session this evening? Mr. Rinaldi, could you read us into closed session?
Okay, no, we have two items, so I have to read them. So, we have two items up for closed session. Personnel issue and a contract. This motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter in closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion and consideration or interviews of a prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of employees of the school board, specifically an employee personnel issue. I think we have a second one, right? Okay. Stand by. This motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter in a closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A29, discussion of award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers of discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
Is there a second on both of these motions for closed session?
A second.
Mr. Grant, can you do roll call for us?
Certainly, Dr. Funk,
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe,
Aye.
Dr. Pitts,
Aye.
Mr. Renaud.
Aye.
Great, thank you. We're in closed